So who was the protagonist of the story before Eren Yeager? Now this might confuse a lot of you, but 57 years before the birth of Eren Yeager lived another character, and his name was Kuklo, who dubbed a son of a titan since he was seemingly birthed from a titan. In reality, his pregnant mother, who was a titan worshipper, was swallowed by a titan and thought to be dead, when suddenly, against all of the odds, the titan vomits out a baby. Now this boy's origin is parallel to Guts' from Berserk, who was born from a corpse of his hanging pregnant mother, left there to die alone. Just like Guts, Kuklo is marked by the spectre of death. Kuklo was quickly hated and feared by all of the people within the walls, and forced to wander the streets. The son of a titan is feared by people who fear what they don't quite understand. Now this story was written by Ryo Suzukaze and drawn by Satoshi Shiki. It's the official prequel to Attack on Titan, named Before the Wall. It has mangas, novels, etc. So it's not like this fan fiction spin-off, it genuinely is the prequel to Attack on Titan. The whole thing was supervised and read by Isayama, the author of Attack on Titan. He even mentions it within the guidebooks. The story offers a rare window into an era before the destruction of Wall Maria, the rebirth of the Survey Corps, and the creation of a 3D maneuvering gear. It's the story of how Kuklo became one of the first to travel far beyond the walls. So the interesting question is, how does he link into the main story? How did he influence it? Who is he? Well, he's an outcast child who's eventually caught and raised like an animal. Kuklo is abused by an older kid called Shavi, who's the son of a nobleman called Dario. Years later, Kuklo is sold to Dario, so his son Shavi can practice abusing what he thinks is some sort of titan-human hybrid, even though he just looks like a typical human. So, during the next few years, Shavi continues to beat him and bring his friends to do the same so they can ridicule him. One night, Shavi's sister Sharle, who's around the same age as Kuklo, tries to kill this monster with a knife, but Kuklo grabs the knife and begs her to kill him. This makes Sharle realize that he's nothing but a normal human being just like her, and so the two of them form this friendship, with her teaching him how to speak, read, write, and the history of the world. Over the next few months, his abuse gets worse and worse until he decides to finally escape with Sharle. Already, you could probably compare both Kuklo and Eren, since they both kind of seek freedom. Maybe Kuklo in a more literal sense, since he's been trapped pretty much most of his life. Instead of being trapped behind walls like Eren, he's been trapped in a cage. But even once he gets outside, you'll realize that he wants to escape the walls as well. There's this innate connection between those two characters and their lust for freedom. So, the night before his escape, the house is attacked by members of this Titan cult in an attempt to rescue him and ultimately make Kuklo their new leader. But obviously Kuklo cares about Sharle's safety, so he runs to the main house and looks for her once he's free. As he passes locks of corpses of numerous guards, he comes across Dario's dead body. Shavi's angry that his father's dead now, and he gets into a fight with Kuklo, cutting his right eye right before he stops him. With nothing left, Kuklo and Sharle make their escape to Shiganshina. And this is the beginning of a Shiganshina district arc. After arriving there, Kuklo was finally free. He returned back home. When I say he's returned back home, this is where he lived, roaming the streets before he was captured. After receiving some surgery on his eye, Kuklo wakes up from a nightmare. When Sharle comes back from getting food, she advises him not to overdo it, since he's still recovering. Kuklo says that he's fine, the bleeding isn't so bad. But as you realize, just like Eren, he loves to overdo it. Sharle apologizes for her brother's actions towards him, and says that Shavi has now joined the training corps. Sharle also mentions that the military police are looking for both of them. This is when Kuklo sets his eyes, or I guess just eye, on Beyond the Walls, to figure out if he actually is a Titan, like everybody thinks he is. Kuklo then overhears the first expedition planned by the Survey Corps to go outside in 15 years. This is when he sees Wall Maria for the first time, realizing how large it is. He's in complete awe of how big they are, how big each of the walls are. Sharle then gives Kuklo a haircut and a knife from when they first met. Sharle represents the knife that saved him, and the knife represents her. It's an interesting analogy since knives are weapons that are used to kill but also defend. Anyway, Kuklo accepts this and thanks her, promising Sharle that he will return someday, and this is when he sets off. He follows the Survey Corps on their expedition and hides within their wagon. He does eventually accidentally reveal himself. This is when he demands to see the captain. The soldiers don't respond, so Kuklo decides to find the captain or the leader on his own. After being caught, he's brought before Commander Kuklo. Kuklo tells Kuklo that the only reason he left was to see Titans, for no specific reason apparently. Anyway, the conversation is interrupted when a Titan is spotted. This Titan is the main antagonist of the series, called Ogre. Kuklo looks at the Titan and claims that he himself is a human. He now knows whose side he's on. He is on the side of humanity, and he is a human. Kuklo tells him to run away while ordering the Survey Corps to fall back and retreat to Wall Maria. Instead of being crushed by the Titan chasing them, the Titan instead picks him up, along with another soldier named Rolf, and raises the two into his mouth. As Ogre consumes Rolf, Kuklo remembers Sharle and the weapon that she gave him. He drops a rifle, and in a final attempt to escape, Kuklo stabs the Titan in the eye. The Titan howls in pain and rage while it throws Kuklo up into the air. Kuklo begins to panic and falls to the ground. Before Kuklo can get on a horse or respond, he's caught by several members of the military police brigade, and then Commander Gloria Burntheart demands that Kuklo hand Kuklo over. She begins to list a number of his alleged crimes that have been committed, notifying Kuklo that Kuklo is the infamous Titan's son. Anyway, as he's brought back, Sharle's in the crowd and she's unable to protest as he's being escorted through them. He has no choice but to entrust Sharle's knife to Kuklo as he's arrested and escorted away. Kuklo remembers that when he was locked up slightly beforehand, so this wasn't too long ago, right before he's brought in, another prisoner said to him if he tries to escape he'll get beaten, just like he was. He reveals himself to be Cardina Burmeister. This shocks Kuklo because Cardina was meant to be the guy that Sharle was engaged to. Together they talk about the corruption of the justice system. Cardina, for example, had been involved in political disputes and got arrested by the higher-ups because they didn't like him. Cardina explains that in 2 weeks' time, both of them are meant to be fed to Titans to pay for their crimes. Despite all of this, he plans to escape to this place called Nakara. It's a city rumored to be full of exiles in the north. He theorizes that Titans seem to be coming from the south, so the most likely place for a city to exist would be in the north. I don't quite follow his line of logic, but he certainly believes it. He says if it doesn't exist, they should make the utopian city of Nakara themselves, causing Kuklo to call him crazy. Kuklo admires his dream and agrees to help him escape and build this city. Anyway, both of them are transported to Shinganshina using a wagon, when all of a sudden a mysterious figure helps Kuklo by giving his knife back. Another interesting about the knife and its imagery, it's kind of similar to how in the original story of Attack on Titan, decades later, the main character Eren Yeager uses a knife to protect Mikasa, the same knife that Mikasa would pick up and kill her kidnappers with. This knife is meant to be this representation of strength and how Eren helped Mikasa achieve her full potential almost. It has a similar meaning in this case as well, but somewhat different because it kind of represents this defensive property as well. This property of saving somebody. Like this knife could have killed Kuklo very early into the story, but it didn't. It rather saved him. Kuklo being given this knife is kind of like how Mikasa got given the scarf. Anyway, back to the story. Once they're 1 kilometer outside the walls, the pair decide to run towards Shinganshina when they're attacked by nearby Titans. The other prisoners are eaten by hordes of Titans. As they're running, they see this shining light from a west side of Wall Maria and they decide to chase it, while Kuklo does, and Cardina follows him, putting his faith in Kuklo. On top of the wall is the same mysterious figure, and he's the one shining the light, who gave Kuklo his knife. He throws him down a line so they can climb the wall. But as this is happening, Cardina gets attacked by a Titan, so Kuklo is forced to go back and help him. One of the Titans picks Kuklo up and throws him aside. Cardina then hits the Titan with a small boulder to help Kuklo escape, but they do manage to both attack the Titan together, but when they're overwhelmed, they're forced to retreat. The soldier is able to pull them both back up the wall. When Kuklo and Cardina reach the top of the wall, they thank the soldier who pulls down his hood to reveal that he is Van Hohenheim. No, he isn't, but he kinda looks like him. All jokes aside, it turns out to be the legend George Pickhale, the first human to have ever defeated the Titan, at least according to all the people within the walls. He also happens to be the guy who trained Cardina while he was in the military police. The next morning, Kuklo and Cardina safely ride with George. George addresses how they need to take advantage of their exile in order to keep him under their custody. Cardina tells him about his parents and how they pressured him into becoming a member of the military police, kinda like how Dario did with his son Shabi. Cardina thanks Kuklo for his help and says that he'd probably make a great soldier. Kuklo also received praise from George and his son Carlo, who is the current commander of the Survey Corps. Since they are father and son, it kind of explains how he got the knife in the first place. When he gave the knife to Carlo, Carlo must have passed it on to his father, who gave it back to Kuklo. This is when George explains that he's taking them to the industrial city within Wall Rose. George informs Kuklo that Sharle is living there with a friend, and he also sees a device that George used to save them in the first place. When he asks about it, he says he needs to return the machine back to his friend. Kuklo and Cardino ask what the machine is called, and he says it doesn't have a name yet. The other soldiers just call it the device. George uses gear to kill a Titan 15 years ago, but it can only move up or down, so technically it's like the vertical maneuvering gear, which makes it kind of bad against Titans since they can move side to side, which this machine can't. Well, at least not yet. Kuklo, Cardina and George get to Wall Rose and then Industrial City. When Kuklo hears somebody call his name, he turns around and sees that it's Sharle. Sharle hugs Kuklo as they go back to the factory where she's been living recently. Kuklo also sees different machines throughout the workshop. They arrive at the office belonging to the owner Xenophon. Xenophon calls Kuklo by his infamous name, Titan's son, but Kuklo doesn't like this, so he introduces himself properly. Xenophon then asks Kuklo and Cardina to show them his arms. He states that both of them have pretty good potential as fighters, and they should consider joining the Survey Corps, since they've been short on men for a while now. Anyway, Sharle interrupts and says she doesn't want Kuklo to join. Kuklo disagrees and states that he needs to become a soldier so he can learn how to use the device and help humanity, since he's only just recently learned that he's human. After dinner, Sharle tries to destroy the device, but Kuklo walks in and apologizes to Sharle for making her wait for so long. She starts crying and Kuklo hugs her. Sharle asks Kuklo why he would still want to join the Survey Corps despite all the hardships that he's had to go through. Kuklo smiles and tells her that he truly loves the people of his world and that his goal has now changed as he's grown and developed and learned that the people around him aren't so bad. Over the course of his journey, Kuklo has finally forgiven the cruelty of humanity. He's never felt so alive, so human. Since you gotta remember, he's been treated like a captive animal for most of his life. The world is a lot more complex than he originally thought after gaining his freedom, so he thanks Sharle for teaching him about this world. Kuklo proclaims that he has to destroy the Titans so he can learn about what it means to be more human and achieve something truly greater than freedom. He thinks if he doesn't stop the Titans now, they'll take everything that he's worked so hard to learn about. The next morning, George offers to show him something called iron bamboo. Kuklo, Cardina, Sharle then go to the forest to take a look at this bamboo. Kuklo participates in a walk on the outskirts of town, passing through these main gates. As he continues to walk through a forest, Kuklo eventually reaches a clearing where he's surrounded by this iron bamboo. He realizes how beautiful it is and goes to touch one, surprised to realize that it actually feels like steel. He learns that Sharle's knife was created from this iron bamboo too, which explains how he managed to damage a Titan earlier. When he's asked why it's not used by all soldiers, he's told that the growth that they actually grow from is natural, but they're trying to learn how this bamboo absorbs iron properly. George then tells everybody the story of how they captured a Titan 15 years ago, when Kuklo's mother died and how he was found. George's friend Angel was the one who created this device for George to use in the first place, and he'd worked extremely hard to invent this. Kuklo promises George that he'll carry on his friend's will and determination, as well as join the Survey Corps with Cardina. Later that night, Sharle brings some tea to his room. Cardina gets a hint, and he comes up with an excuse to leave so they can be alone. Sharle mentions that Kuklo acted strangely when it was mentioned that his mother was eaten by that Titan. Kuklo states that he wasn't sure how to feel because he never really knew his mother. It's kind of weird, he'd always felt like he never really had a mother or family. Sharle hugs him and says that she'll be his family. As a few months pass, Kuklo and Cardina practice with their new and improved gear. Every day Kuklo envisions his sworn enemy Ogre's face. Despite all of his training, he knows that fighting an actual Titan won't be so easy. Kuklo is formally introduced to Carlo, who he has met already and is the current head of the Survey Corps. They both laugh over how they survived the Titan's attack months ago and are now figuring out each other's names. After settling in within the Survey Corps barracks, Kuklo and the others travel to the wall that night to demonstrate the improved device. As they gear up and they're on the wall, Kuklo hears several Titans beneath him. The team think that they should postpone the test because the weather's kind of bad, but you know Kuklo, he's pretty rash, so he jumps off the wall. He's able to momentarily stun them, but he does realize his 10-meter Titan is coming for him from behind, but to Kuklo's shock, it runs right past him, like he doesn't really care about him. When he turns around, he realizes that he's targeting his best friend Cardina. Kuklo prepares to ambush a Titan and try to kill it, but when he tries this, he gets thrown away, breaking his right arm, so he can't use a maneuvering gear. Carlo and Cardina bring him to the top of the wall. He's told that Ogre was the same Titan who killed and ate his father, Heath, the squad leader of the Survey Corps. As Carlo heals, George announces that MPs are heading towards Industrial City because of an emergency, so he thinks they should head back as well. Kuklo definitely wants to so he can check on Sharle. After arriving back, this revolution has started, so the military police have had to shut down the main gate. Kuklo uses a device to fly into the city and look for Sharle, while George distracts the guards at the gate. Eventually he finds Sharle and Xenophon, but they're being accompanied by members of a revolution. Kuklo jumps down and fights the rebels, but he gets shot in the leg by a crossbow. At the same time, the military police arrive and open fire at the rebels. Kuklo flies away with Sharle until they reach safety. She then tears apart her dress to use as a bandage for Kuklo's leg, and they both begin to head towards where George and Cardina are. Sharle asks why he's not using the device, and Kuklo states that it would draw too much attention to themselves. Both Kuklo and Sharle agree that the rebels had no choice but to rise up in order to have a better life. Being trapped and caged like an animal is a feeling that Kuklo understands all too well, so he doesn't exactly blame them, but Sharle does ask Kuklo what he would have done. Kuklo states that he would have broken through the cage of fear that was holding the rebels back. He goes on to say, to that extent, all the people living within the walls are safe, but they're also afraid to get out and see what is beyond the walls. They've always been like that, treated like an outsider. Slowly, Kuklo's understanding of people is beginning to grow. Their fears are becoming his fears, and he's realized that he's fighting for more than just himself or Sharle, he's fighting for everyone. All of a sudden, they hear a voice from behind him. Kuklo is shocked to see that it's Xavi, Sharle's brother. They haven't seen each other in months, and he has this vengeful look in his eyes. They immediately draw their swords on each other and try to strike each other down. Kuklo tries to protect Sharle from a deranged brother, since he once again blames everything he's lost and everybody he's lost on Kuklo. He offers him the chance to live if he hands Sharle over, but Kuklo refuses. As Xavi rushes towards him, Kuklo outmaneuvers him and cuts right through Xavi's sword. He aims one of the anchors at Xavi, but as he's doing this, he remembers Xavi's claim of how everybody dies around him. So he hesitates. Xavi takes advantage of this and cuts his leg. As his leg's cut, he begins to tumble and fall, falling unconscious into a nearby river. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. We're pretty much halfway through his story, and it only gets far more interesting from here, because there's a lot of things that haven't been explained. So Kuklo was a kid, the main character who preceded Eren, and he seems in a lot of ways similar to him, but at the same time different. I wonder if there's a connection between the two characters actually. If you guys do want to see the rest of his story, and want to understand my thoughts on it, I could do another video on this. But you gotta let me know if you enjoyed this video. If you did, I wouldn't mind covering more of Attack on Titan lore. But like I said, if you do like the video, subscribe, or comment down below what you do want to see, what you think about this prequel to Attack on Titan, and thank you for making it to the end of the video. And hopefully I see you next time. Peace.